Everybody, and thank you for watching this video. This is a story about kind of the things that happened leading up to me asking my wife to marry me. So it kind of started with me reading the book, The Sacred Search, and I don't remember who it was by, but it was quite an insightful book and a great read if you'd like to read it, especially if you're a single person or looking for marriage and seeking godly marriage. The Sacred Search. But at any rate, I got done reading that book and it started giving me the confidence to kind of know what I was looking for, I guess. And I ended up meeting my wife and dating my wife for a while. And she filled in a lot of the boxes that I was looking for, so to speak. And it got to the point where I was starting to think about asking her to marry me. And I was absolutely petrified. Because I know I came from a broken home and I knew that, even though, I knew from my own experience that people can be very deceptive and that I can be gullible at times. And I didn't want either of those things to happen. And I also knew that even people with good intentions and going into marriage with good intentions oftentimes fail. I know the average is 50%, failure rate for marriages. And if I remember right, I don't think for overarching Christians, the number isn't that much better. And it probably depends on the study too, which studies are not perfect, but they're the information that we have to go off of. So they are valuable. But at any rate, I got real nervous. And despite looking at all the boxes my wife ticked, I struggled to make myself get to the point of I am going to ask her to marry me. I am there. I am willing. I still struggled with that fear of commitment. And so kind of what I did was something that they did in the Bible. If you don't know, casting lots is this thing that, from what I looked up at the time that I did it and that I was looking into doing it, it was not well known, but essentially it's some sort of a game of chance or luck that you're doing because you don't believe in luck, you don't believe in luck, you believe in placing it into God's hands, and God takes whatever's going to happen and makes it happen. And so I don't know if I knew at the time, but I feel like I remember the the research that I did at that time. I think what the ancient Israelites used to do is something with a couple of rocks, either 2 or 3 rocks, where they would have multiple sides on them, and one side is a yes, one side is a no, and then one side is maybe, or perhaps a different way they did it was they had multiple coins with 2 sides, yes or no, and if you get 2 yeses, then God's saying yes. If you get 2 no's, he's saying no. If you get a yes and a no, he's saying a maybe, or it's a non-answer, come back later, rephrase your question, try again at a different time, that kind of a thing. And so I didn't really think about that. All I thought about was one coin. And so I think the first thing, I started flipping coins. I would ask God. I was at the end of my rope, and I'm so thankful for God stepping in at that time, because he would have clearly saved me from throwing away a wonderful marriage, because he wouldn't let it. Well, let me just tell the story. So I started off flipping my wallet. I think I had a Ridge wallet, and one side has a money clip, the other side doesn't. It's just cards. So there's 2 sides to it. So I was like, okay, God, this side is heads, this side is yes, this side is tails, this side is no. Do you want me to marry her? Should I marry her? Or ask her to marry me? And I flipped the thing, and the very first time I did it, I'll show you with a coin here. The very first time I flipped that wallet, what I did was, let me see where I can get it. I was so inside my head and nervous. What I did was I took it, and I was so gentle in my flip that all I did was that. And then I looked at it, and I was like, wait a minute, God, I don't feel like I can trust that one way or another, because that was clearly a failure on my part. I just didn't even flip it. I just flipped it over once. And so when I flipped it that first time, I flipped it to the no. And I was like, that's a no technically, but I don't think I can trust that, because God, I didn't even leave space for you to work your power in the midst of that airborne, chance, as it were. And so I did it again, but this time I actually flipped the wallet in the air and let it land. And it landed on yes. I was like, okay, so there's a little bit of a relief that came on me. I was like, okay, I didn't like that start, but he said yes that time. And I did it again. And it was yes again. And I don't remember how many times I did it. The numbers that are in my head for that first instance of me flipping that wallet, I think were either 7 or 17. I can't remember. But, I kept flipping and flipping, and I kept getting yes, 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 yes. And I was like, wow, maybe God actually wants me to marry her. And so I started, but that wasn't enough for me. That wasn't enough for me. I was wondering, well, I guess there's a chance that it could just be chance or something. I don't know. I still struggled in faith. And so I kept asking God. That time I stopped, and I was happy. I was satisfied and happy that there was a possibility that God wanted me to do that. But I wasn't convinced. And so I kept going. And what I would do is find random items like my phone or something like this. This is a collapsible funnel. There's one side that's different than the other. Okay, this side is tails and this side is heads. This side is yes, this side is no. Ask the same question, flip it, and continue, trying to seek God in that way. And I kept getting yes. Every time it was actually airborne and had time for chance to actually, chance to happen, it would come back yes, marry her, ask her to marry you. And so I got more and more encouraged with that, but I was still nervous, still very nervous. This is a decision that is the rest of my life. And I wanted to make sure and not make a failed decision, especially considering that I came from a broken home. And so what I did was I found items that are somewhat cone-shaped. So like, for example, here's a coffee cup lid, like a disposable lid. In these kind of shapes where, I don't know if you can see like that. So when it's really airborne and heavy and it's flipping, it's going to have the tendency to want to fall like this because of the aerodynamics of it. And I would find objects like that, and I would disadvantage myself purposefully. I wanted to ask her to marry me, but I would disadvantage myself purposefully, where I would say, okay, this is more likely to happen. I'm going to call this no, God. So if the thing that's more likely to happen in relation to chance and physics or whatever, I'm going to make that the don't marry her option, and this, the thing that's less likely, is the yes, marry her option. And I started flipping that, and I just flipped to yes. And every single time I did this, it kept coming back, kept coming back, kept coming back. Yes, marry her, ask her to marry you, ask her to marry you, ask her to marry you. And I kid you not, I didn't keep track, but I would say it was in the ballpark of between 50 and 100 times. If I had to guess, I would guess maybe around 70-ish times between all of the different instances that I did it and how many times I did it in each instance. I would say that's probably about how many times I did it. And I could not make it say no. I could not get it to say no. And so eventually, when God had done this so much that it got me to a point where I'm thinking that I'm just so hard-headed I can't accept the answer, or more likely, I'm just so terrified of making a mistake because I struggle a lot with anxiety, and this is a decision for the rest of my life. I decided finally, okay, my life is yours, God. I'm going to ask her to marry me. Your will be done. And I thank you so much for giving me her. I thank you so much for finally, after all these years, answering my prayer. I'm so thankful that he did. And I am definitely not saying that this is something that's going to happen for you in your story. I think this is something that if you're going to do, you have to operate in full faith. So like if you flip the coin and you get an ambiguous answer, you keep getting maybes, or maybe you ask the same answer twice and you get different answers. I firmly feel that it's a result of not having enough faith. You may need to, stop it for now and come back whenever. What I had to do generally was I had the most faith when I was the most desperate. Because when I wasn't desperate enough, I was still trying to use reason. I was still trying to be in my own human wisdom thinking and that kind of thing. But when I got to the end of my rope, when I got more and more desperate, I relied more and more on God. And I feel strongly that it's in those times that God answered me the most honestly, the most deliberately, the most reliably. And I praise God that he did. So there's your quick story. You know, it's probably not the normal story that you hear from everybody, but yeah, if you don't know, casting lots is a thing that was done in the book of Acts as a means of choosing Matthias for a replacement for Judas as one of the 12 disciples. So they took it seriously. But what is the thing that they did? They prayed before it. That's one of the things they did. They prayed to God, and they gave the parameters that they were looking for. And they prayed to God. They said, God, you know the hearts of men like we don't. You choose between these two guys. They first used their human reasoning, right? They were like, okay, well, we want somebody who's been with us the whole time and that knows Jesus and that was here while Jesus was alive and before he had risen and gone to heaven. You know, we want somebody who's seen all these miracles. We want this criteria, and they found two people. I can't remember the name of the other guy. Barsabas? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, they casted lots, and the lot fell on Matthias to take that replacement. So in that way, I kind of took a similar route. I was partially through the book, you know, The Sacred Search, I was empowered, as it were, to know, okay, well, what am I looking for in a wife? Exactly. And then that enables you to say, okay, this person fits that criteria well, and this person does not fit that criteria well. And so, yeah, and then I ended up casting lots, which I'm literally just now, as I'm doing this video, realizing the similarities between those two. Kind of, it's refreshing to notice that. So, the story you didn't know that you wanted, hopefully, but that's the story of how I came to ask my wife to marry me through God's reassurance and graceful reassurance. I appreciate you watching, and if you liked this, please like and subscribe.